Welcome to the Elevated Chat Room. It's your host, Dwayne Malone, and also I have with me Mr. Lonzo Jones. Lonzo, let's go.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Welcome to the Elevated Chat Room. Elevate your mind, elevate your life. Listen. Once again, y'all, we got a special guest with us.
Special guest.
But before I give a brief introduction, let me tell you what the topic is. The topic for tonight is the science of change, navigating motivation and behaviors. So our special guest tonight is really going to help us dive deep into this particular topic is Valena Gonzales. She is a therapist, y'all. Yeah, we like therapists.
Let's go.
I'm going to let her introduce herself. Go ahead, Miss Gonzales.
My name is Valena, and I've been in a counseling role of some kind since 2008 when I started working at a juvenile lockup facility. Like, it wasn't like detention, but it was residential.
Okay.
And so like half the population was severe behaviors, emotional. Then the other half of the population there had like sexual misconduct, different issues like that. And so from there, I've worked in daycares, geriatrics, juvenile drug courts, probation kids, the veterans court program.
Okay.
We did the drug court with them. IOP services, which is the intensive outpatient services for the substance use adults and children. Lots of variety.
I see.
Yeah.
So you are diverse, as we would say.
So, yeah.
So before we even get it down to the main questions, so what made you okay, let's do this. How did you get introduced until wanting to be involved in all the things that you're involved in? Like, what sparked that?
Total chance. I was, my undergrad is in communications with radio, TV, film production.
Okay.
And so my dream was to be on SportsCenter. It's all everyone would do when I was young.
Stuart Scott was my guy.
Very tragic, yes. But so in my, sophomore year in college, I had an opportunity to do an internship for the Egg Bowl and with ESPN, and I turned it down for a terrible reason. And so once I missed that, I was like, I knew that was it because I wasn't going to get that opportunity again. So I knew my, career dream had to change because probably wasn't going to be able to do that. You know, you can't just go get that back.
Right.
So, but I went ahead and finished my degree because I'm like, there's no reason I'm stopping now. I'm almost finished. Let's, finish up. So then I transferred to UNA and finished there. So I did a lot of like radio stuff back in where I'm from in Iuka. I did some things there. And then I started working at the Walgreens call center. First I was like on the calls, like taking the calls, and then I moved to their training department, things like that. And so my communication degree kind of helped with that. But while I was there, you were helping people, but it wasn't, I don't know how to explain it. Like, there was not a lot of connection. Even though you talk to people on the phone every day, there was no like personal connection with people. And so I knew a lady who worked at the Walgreens store. And so she said, well, my sister works at this, residential place. It's, a lot of kids, have a lot of issues at home, school, things like that. She was like, do you want me to see if they've got any positions open? And I was like, well, yeah, okay. So I'd done some like substitute teaching through one of the local schools, and I really liked it. Okay. And I was like, okay, I kind of like these kids. Like, this is kind of fun. But I'd worked in preschools before, but not like anything serious.
Right.
And so they had positions open. And so immediately, got called in for an interview, and just walking through the facility, like you could see these kids who they weren't normal kids, and it's like, okay,
what society would say is normal. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I was like, okay, like this is interesting. And the reason I think I kind of like gravitated towards that is because I was one of those kids. Like, I stayed in trouble. However, I had a good support system. I had sports. And so if I ever got in trouble, I'd have coaches who would run you till you just couldn't feel your body, or you'd work out till you couldn't feel your body. Like, those
wow.
You know what I mean? So,
I
was grateful that I had that because sports was my only outlet. And so once I knew, okay, well, I had a good support system, and these kids clearly don't, like something's happened in these kids, because we don't just act out.
Right.
And so just walking through the facility, and of course, the kids see you and they're waving. He's like, oh, are you working here now? Things like that. And so just to see how personable they wanted to be, and they didn't even know you could tell they were begging for attention. And I'm like, okay, this can be kind of neat. Started working there, and the first 3 months I cried every day coming home. because I could not imagine these kids living there. I mean, they're residential. We had kids there for 6 months. We had kids there for 6 years. You know, like we raised one particular from the time he was 12 till he aged out of the system.
Wow.
And so it's one of those, like, this is somebody's child.
Yeah.
You know, like, and some parents came to visit and some didn't.
Wow.
And so it was one of those, like, how can you not be attached to them or kind of, you know, gravitate towards that? And so once I started working there, it wasn't long at all. I guess about 1.5 years when I started working there, I'm like, this is what I want to do. And so I went back to UNA to do my master's with community counseling. And it's just been
on and popping ever since. Okay, sweet. Yes. Well, let's go ahead and dive deep into these questions then. So first thing is, what misconceptions exist about teens and their behaviors?
Several, you know.
Well, come on with it.
Well, I mean, because, you know, the first thing you think of is, like, if I say the word teenager to you, what's the first thing you think about?
Wild.
Okay.
Yeah, I got to roll with him.
Right. Okay. But why? You know what I mean? So
free.
Right. Yeah. Too free.
Right.
But
borderline grown, can't tell me nothing.
Yes. Exactly.
Independent.
Okay. Right.
All that, yeah.
Immediately, all these things start popping up, and really, it's like, well, why are they acting that way to begin with? You know? So I just listed kind of the top ones that I see the most of, you know, work, real life, you know, things like that. The first one I have is that teenagers don't have anything to be anxious or depressed about. A lot of my clients come in and they're so angry with their parents because, like, they're truly anxious and they're truly depressed. But family members and even teachers I've had, you know, make comments, and it's like, well, you're a kid. What could you possibly be stressed about? What could you possibly be, you know, depressed about or anxious? You have everything you need. And the kids don't feel like they've been taken seriously. It's like nobody's listening to me. And so they kind of blend in, but they're blending in with usually the wrong crowd.
Yeah.
And so that's the top one that I see often.
So what was that top one again?
Teens don't have anything to be anxious or depressed about.
And see, that we dealt with that on one particular episode when we was talking about the top 7 things that stress kids out, because we don't think they have stress.
Right.
You know, because like you just said, we literally look at them, it's like, you don't have to do nothing but, you know, be a good kid and go to school and, you know, and eat what we provide for you.
Right, absolutely.
But it's way deeper than that.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. Sure. What you got on the next one?
The next one I have, teens act out for attention.
So that's that's a misconception?
Yeah.
Okay, so why?
Because, I mean, do some of them? Absolutely. Okay. You know, but typically the majority of them, no. Like, there's a reason. And so I teach, especially my teenagers, when it comes, like, even probation or with parents, one of the biggest things that we see now is, like, grandparents raising their grandkids.
Yes, we do.
And so that huge, we look at, like, cultural differences. We look at, you know, the age gaps. Like, there's so many things that play factors in those. And so the older, you know, parent figures, the grandparents are like, well, you just want attention. Like, why are you acting like this? Like, you shouldn't act like this. Like, you know better. Well, yes, but every single behavior we have serves a purpose, a function, and there's a goal behind everything that we do, good, bad, or ugly. So we learn what kind of behaviors we're going to display based on the reactions we're going to get from people. And so a lot of the kids, you know, that I work with personally are like the oppositional kids. It's like, you know, kids aren't just going to be oppositional just because. Like, why are they being oppositional? Like, why are they just absolutely refusing to do everything they're asked to do? And it could go either way. Like, we have it from one extreme to the other, to where the parents are telling them what to do and the kids are not doing it because they know mom and dad's just going to right behind them and do it. So the kid's like, well, why would I have to do it if you're going to do it for me?
Right,
you know?
Right.
And so we have behaviors like that, but then we have some where it's like a true, like, chemical imbalance type thing, to where there's just things really going on that's, you know, pretty deep.
So repeat that one again. What was that one?
Teens act out for attention.
Okay, so all teens don't act out for attention. That is a misconception, y'all. Okay, so when your kid is, you know, acting a fool or, you know, acting out, it's not because solely that he wants or she wants attention, correct?
Right.
All right, so we got to learn our kids. We got to learn why they're doing it. No, seriously.
Right.
Because, like, with me, like, and that's one thing that me and my wife say all the time about our kids. We got 2 boys, a 9-year-old and a 7-year-old. I was like, y'all get all the attention in the world. So why are you, you know what I'm saying, doing this or doing that? And then it's just like they're just being kids. You know, when you really see like he's being 8. He's been a 7-year-old.
Yes.
Okay. I got you.
Well, the hardest, because I have like my clients currently now, like I work for a pediatrician's office. And so my clients now go from the ages of 3, and I think my oldest might be 18. And my favorite ones right now are the 3 to 7 because they are figuring life out.
Yes.
And the worst thing that I have a teacher send me whenever I have to do like kind of updates, how are they doing in school? How are they in class? Well, they just won't be still. Or they just won't stop touching things. And like I'm sitting here, I know with this crazy look on my face on the phone, like, what? They're not what? You know, like I'm making sure I'm not missing anything. You know, like they're 5.
So you want them to be statues.
Right. And I have a lot of personal feelings when it comes to like the way our school systems, not just our school systems, our classrooms are set up. You know, kids learn through movements. Like, when we're moving, we're learning, we're taking in things, like we're retaining all these things, especially boys. Like boys learn differently than girls, but like we notice it in the boys a lot sooner than we do the girls, you know? And so outdoor classrooms, nature classrooms are the absolute best thing. Wow. A lot of classrooms that I've seen in one of the counties that I used to do like in-school therapy with, some of the classrooms were set up to where they were really low tables. And the chairs, instead of a chair or a desk, were like it looks like a workout ball almost, but it has like little tiny legs on it. So while the kids are sitting there at the table, they're bouncing, they're shifting, they're moving, but they're doing their work. Nobody's getting in trouble because that energy that they have, they're exerting it through the ball, but doing all their homework. They're doing their lessons. No behavioral, like nobody's clipped down. You know, those.
So is that all? Was that all the classes there, or just certain classes?
Just certain classrooms in that school.
That's pretty dope, though.
It's phenomenal.
And you have to step outside of the box to really reach the kids, to teach the kids, and to allow the kids to actually be able to have an experience at school instead of just going to school to sit, watch, and learn.
Right. Okay. Absolutely.
What's your next misconception?
Let's see. Kids do not care what adults think.
So they care what we think is what you're saying?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
I can agree with that one. Like, I'm not as surprised with that one as the other two.
Well, okay, we can go back to the last one.
Okay.
One about getting attention. I guess you could say yes and no, because some kids' behaviors are a cry for help.
Right.
You know
we get that.
And, right. And so we can look at it that way. Yes, they need attention. But just because a kid is hyper or he's shifting, like I was the kid who tapped and bounced and all the things like, oh, my mother stayed at the school because I was always in trouble.
Yeah.
I had talks too much on my report card from kindergarten to 6th grade every 6 weeks. And it's just like, what do you do with that? You know? And so I was that kid.
Right.
You know?
I was like that. My dad, I think I was in 3rd grade and they wanted to put me on Ritalin. Right. And my dad was like, no, we're going to take other measures. Right. You know?
Because when we were growing up, it was like, that was the only medication that was there, first of all. And there was a doctor, I didn't mean to cut you off.
You good?
There was a doctor that one of my family members saw. And the first thing he told the parents, if a kid would rather play like with a cardboard box or like pots and pans or sticks and stuff outside, like that's a problem. Like that's a sign of ADHD. And I'm just like, what? Like, why would you not want the kid? You know what I mean? Like, why would you not want them to use their imagination? Yeah. And so I feel like when we were growing up, like that, I don't say there's a stigma on it, but
it also lack the knowledge of what they have now. You know, because I was just had more energy, you know, even though like my dad was a big disciplinary at the house, but I still could not help myself at times because I like to talk, like you were saying. I liked attention. That's just because of my personality, you know. And then I learned to kind of, you know, tailor that. But yeah, there was times where I was like, yeah, you're going to put you on some Ritalin. My dad was like, no, we'll handle that. So
work through it. Yeah, we learned to adapt.
Yeah,
that's
like even like my oldest boy, he's high energy for days. Great kid, right. But you have to be adjustable.
Right.
You can't expect him to be like these other kids. I'm like, no, they go all day. And he's going to talk your head off. He's going to ask you a million questions.
Right.
That's just who he is. And you just have to be like, okay, well, that's just your personality God gave you. Yeah. I don't want to tame you, right. But I want you to learn how to control it.
Right. Well, and there's so many things now that we're learning, especially, you know, I'll use ADHD for an example. Like, I'll say a lot of the diagnoses that, you know, we're having to get. I don't even like the word diagnosis. I feel like it labels kids. And it's like, I'd rather say we have tendencies to do things. But I don't want to ever even let a kid know what their diagnosis is sometimes because they're going to thrive in it. You know what I mean? Like, they're going to watch TikToks and they're going to say, well, TikTok says that I have this and TikTok. And I'm just like, oh my mercy. Like, what are we? I have mixed feelings, but I know we have to have it because we need to know like what direction we need to treat them in and what interventions we need to use. So I get where it's useful, but I also feel like a lot of times now it becomes almost a handicap because it's like people realize it's like, oh, well, I have anxiety. And so the kids that I have come in the office, well, I don't want to go to school anymore because I have anxiety, or I can't have a job because I have anxiety. And I'm just like, how are we going to function?
It's the mindset that's being taught to them behind closed doors. You know,
right? Now, is anxiety real? Yes, of course it is. You know, is depression real? Yes, but that's kind of the therapy that I do. Kind of shifts a lot of those things.
What was that third misconception? I don't think you ever did it.
I didn't. I didn't even get to go in it. Kids don't care what adults think, and they absolutely do. Like you'll have a kid. Well, I don't care what anybody says. Like I don't need anybody. That's not true. Like you're a human, and humans need contact and interaction. But that's how we survive.
Built on to have relationships.
Absolutely. And so when you have these kids just shut down, well, I don't need anybody. I don't care what anybody says. That's their cry for help. It's like, no, your support system, the people who's supposed to be there for you probably aren't. And so because those close people aren't, I'm shutting everybody else out either. So why should I trust you if I can't trust my own people?
Yeah.
And that's tough, you know, to kind of get through, especially our teenagers that we have.
That was good. I like that though.
I hear that all the time. Kids say they don't need anyone or they don't care what anyone think of them.
Right.
I hear that all the time.
Yeah.
A lot of it though, that, you know, we've just kind of seen, I say we as in my circle, like the people I've worked with, you know, and the populations that I've worked with the most, primarily with the teenagers and the juvenile system, you know, things like that. But like kids need boundaries.
Yes.
Kids need structure. Kids need rules. And is what hurts me is when I have parents come in my office and they're like, well, I just want to give them their privacy. I don't want to overstep.
What?
And I struggle with that because does everybody need privacy? Yes. But there's limitations to things.
Yes.
Because so many kids are doing so many harmful things behind closed doors, whether it's on social media, whether it's self-harm, whether it's substance, you know, that they're hiding in their closet, whatever. So yes, privacy is important, but there's limitations to that.
I agree.
And so if we just throw a kid out there and it's like with no curfew or no rules or no whatever, like I'm 42 years old and I will never comprehend a kid not having a curfew.
Yeah, that's a ticking time bomb.
Right, exactly.
Yes.
Exactly. And I struggle because I don't want to tell parents like, we're the reasons that they're acting like
but
this.
That's the problem. You need to tell them.
Oh, well, now you do. And that's
I mean, and it's
I do.
Now, of course, we're not going to say it to them like we're talking about it right now, like you're the problem.
Right.
But it's going to be like, look, you know, in order for this to work, you're going to have to step your parenting game up. Right. And what I'm teaching here, you're going to have to back me up at home.
Right.
You know, you got to figure out just a way to tell them because we know from what we deal with.
Absolutely.
That, I mean, you can literally, like, okay, we go into the detention center. If it's 20 kids in there and we tell them to raise your hand if your father is not in your life, probably 17 out of the 20 is going to raise their hand.
Yep.
And that's always one of the main common denominators. The father figure not being in the home. And then you have parents that are in the home, but they're not truly present.
Right. Well, right. In a lot of those situations, especially the kids that, you know, that I've worked with extensively, one parent's out of the home. So the other one is the main provider. So I'm trying to be as supportive for you as I can, but I'm working 2 and 3 jobs and I'm having to do this. And so these kids are
a lot of free time.
Right. And the moms or whoever is they're devastated because it's like, you know, I'm trying so hard to keep them out of trouble and you can't fault them because it's like, well, who else is going to take care of them? You know? And so, but a lot of the, like I said, that generational gap, I've had parents or grandparents say, well, their mama and dad was so, you know, XYZ to them. I don't want to hurt them more. You're hurting them by not putting those boundaries and that structure in place. And
like, I know that just dealing with my kids and watching, you know, other families that when your kids have structure, expectations, they're held accountable, and you have those boundaries, you know, they respect you more.
Absolutely. Yeah.
They appreciate you more. And they also understand the authority figure in their life. So they're less likely to disrespect you.
Right.
Or if they slip up, they really
They
check
realize what's
themselves.
happening.
Yes.
Yes, they
before
realize
it gets
what's happening.
before it goes left.
Yep.
So I definitely agree with that. Hey, you're doing a great job. I like this.
Yeah,
I like
you
this.
relax now.
Yeah,
I am.
yeah.
I'm good.
Come on.
But
What you got?
I will
Go ahead.
personally say that I feel like everyone that deal with youth, and I would say parents too, we really have to be more intentional on disciplining and creating that structure for the kids, and knowing that that's a sign of love too.
Yes.
Right. Well, and that's
I
what I
think
was.
that's the biggest problem.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep. And my older kid, I'll say, "How do you know mom loves you? How do you know like
That's a
dad
good
loves
question. I like that question.
you?" And because it's one of the because what is love?
Sacrifice.
Hello.
Well, to us, we're at the point in our lives where
Yeah.
we can kind of see that.
Mhm.
These kids growing up, they see love on social media. They see it in movies. They hear it
Yeah.
in songs.
Mhm.
They don't know what love is. And so
Mhm.
they're reaching out in crazy, ridiculous places, trying to get that love, trying to get that acceptance, trying to be like, just somebody look at me and listen to me.
Yeah.
And when you bring up discipline as love, they're just like, well, no, like yo, I had a kid this week,
Oh.
lost her mind because grandma put her foot down. And it's like, well, they're just being abusive. How? What? But that's that
Yeah.
misconception, like, because I'm putting my foot down and I love you. No, I love you is why I'm putting my
Right.
foot down. I
Yeah.
can't let you just go and do whatever it
But
is you
see,
want
the
to do.
problem is what I've seen since I've been a parent and being around other parents is that, like you just said about the granddaughter was saying that grandma put her foot down and she lost it. She lost it because the grandmother is not consistent in discipline.
That's exactly.
So when you're not consistent,
Zoe said it, not Valena.
right.
so when you are not consistent,
Right.
like, and then you find out later, like I tell my wife, I was like, look, you cannot be nice, over the top sweet with these kids all the time, and then you're having a bad day, and all of a sudden you want to flip out on them because they're doing the same thing they always do. No,
Right.
You got to be the same person. You know what I'm saying, at all times when it comes to your discipline.
And
you got to be more consistent with it.
Yes, absolutely. And so a lot of, the diagnoses, that we talk about still, like, especially with the opposition and the conduct disorder, we have parents and these kids, I say kids are the best master manipulators.
Oh
on the
my
planet.
God, they are.
Doesn't matter
Yes.
what they are. They can be 2 and 3 and they
Man.
know how mom walks in the room if she's in a good mood or not,
Oh, yes.
And
yes.
we have kids to where it's like
Yes.
they wait for that opportunity to see mom's guard down or whatever. And it's like, Mom, can I go here? No. But Mom, can I go here? No. Like, I've already told you no. But they know that 5th, 6th, 7th time, Mom's like, you know what? Just go. But then now Mom's upset because he don't listen. He don't do anything he's asked to do. He's not respectful. Well, why?
You train them to be that way.
I was about to say that.
You trained them.
I had a mentor years ago, and the first thing he taught me was you teach people how to treat you.
Yes, ma'am.
And
Say it again.
you teach people how to treat you.
Yes, ma'am.
She's
Yes.
dropping them nuggets.
Come on. Elevate your mind, elevate your life.
So, but little kid, like parents, like I'm teaching you that if I'm tired, you know when to come push my buttons. Like, so my biggest thing when I do family count is like the whole house has to be on the same page.
Yes, ma'am.
The biggest thing that, that I know kids struggle with, because I personally struggle with it, is co-parenting, because my rules at my house are one, dad's rules
Yes.
are another, granny's is another one, mama's is another, which is fine because at the end of the day, we have the same goal, but our leniency is a little different, and my child,
They know to get
she
away with
knows.
it. Yes.
And so it's like, I'm gonna wait 2 hours. And then when I go over here, I can do.
Yep.
So then when I confront you, like, but you know better, like, what do you do? And so that,
Go ahead.
Well,
I'm gonna say
Oh,
something.
he took that deep prayer like he's gonna jump on.
I know, I was like, go ahead. No, go ahead.
So the subject that you just brought up. So do you ever run into moments where when all the parents are in different households or in the same, but 2 parents or whatever, working like that, do you ever run into moments where one is liked more than the other one? One parent is liked more
Liked
than the other.
more than the other?
Yes. Or always seems
In their words, yes.
seems to be the favorite parent versus the other
You
one.
have the fun parent,
Because
the disciplinarian.
Exactly, because one has to be the disciplinarian and the other one kind of. And so, how important is it for everyone? Like you just mentioned a few minutes ago about your own personal family. How important is it for everyone to communicate and to be on the same page when it comes to that?
It's oh my God, I don't even have a word for it because
It's
you have to.
detrimental.
Yes,
It's
and I don't
detrimental.
even know if that's a strong enough word,
Yeah.
but it is because those kids know who to play and
They
how to
do.
play it. And so if one family has one situation going on at home, they're like, oh, well, they're having issues. So let me do this. Like we see this all the time, and then so they'll play parents against each other and not realize it, So it's like, well, mom said or dad said, and the parents are upset with each other. So they don't ask to confirm. And so the kid just goes and does whatever they want to do.
Mhm.
They're master manipulators.
They are.
We teach them to do that. And so when it comes like this, the boundaries and the structure, whatever, like with certain like I said, the opposition, the conduct disorder, things like that has to be clean cut across the board. Like you can't pick your battles with those type kids because they know what those battles are.
I've been called, my kids, they haven't called me mean in about 2 years now. But
I was just gonna say they haven't never called you mean. This man said in 2
about
years.
2 years, they ain't called me mean.
I knew it was
about 2
there.
years.
I was waiting.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And it's like, I'm cool with being mean.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
But this is what's crazy. They'll call me mean on a day that I've taken them to the Sky Zone. I've taken them to get dessert.
Yes.
But you
I've taken them.
know for
But
some
then, yes. So you've had all the sweet stuff during the day.
Yeah.
And now it's 7:00. You want to go in the freezer and pull out a popsicle. I was like, no, you've had enough sweet stuff for the day. And he'll walk off, go in there. He's like, but they won't be doing it in a disrespectful way. That's what's so crazy. They go in there and be like, Mom, Daddy's so mean.
Mhm.
And Brittany be like, well, why is he mean? Because he won't let me get no ice cream.
Right.
And then she was like, well, didn't he do this, and the day? She said, you better go in there and tell your daddy thank you for what he did do for you today.
That's good.
You see what I'm saying?
That's good.
But
That's
they
important.
they are master manipulators even at young age, because my sons know that when they go to Tuscaloosa and they're with grandparents on either side, they get whatever they want.
Right.
They eating sweets all day. They drinking drinks they don't never drink.
Right.
They wrestling with each other.
Right.
They doing all kind of stuff. But this is be the kicker. Y'all want to call us and say they doing all this. Also, look, they don't do that when they with me. So they do that with y'all. I said, y'all better discipline while they there with y'all. Because when they come back home, they know what's up.
Yep.
And so, like you said, they know from place to place to place how to manipulate, who they can get away with stuff with. They're very, very smart kids. And this is all kids. All kids can manipulate.
Absolutely.
Do not be fooled. That should be a misconception, thinking that kids are not as smart as we think they are.
Yeah.
And I'm so glad you brought that up, because that kind of goes like with some of these others. Depending on a kid's situation, like working in the lockup that I worked with, you would have kids who took on that caregiver role with their siblings.
Yes.
Mom's at work, dad's not home, vice versa. So all day long, this kid has been the boss. But then all of a sudden the parent comes home and the kid tells the little kid to do something. I'm the parent, don't tell them what to do.
Oh,
But hold on,
I
because
experienced it.
That's good.
well, because it's like all day, like
That's
you
good.
put me in this role, like you've expected me to do this, but then now all of a sudden, and so I feel like that's where a lot of that
Wow.
anxiety comes from. A lot, especially the older teenagers who have multiple siblings. Even I have I don't even know what it is, like 7, I think, and he has several younger siblings. He's the oldest, and so he's not in that caregiver role, but because he knows I'm the oldest, I'm supposed to take care of everybody. I'm supposed to help. Like if mom's washing dishes or whatever, it's my job to take care of these kids. And so he gets so frustrated and he gets in trouble because he's trying to take on that authoritative role. And his siblings are like yelling and screaming at him and not listening. But he carries that. He carries that weight like, I can't help mom. Like, why can't I help? And he's 7.
Wow.
Yeah.
So when I have my teenagers literally working, putting money into the house, helping pay bills, helping buy groceries, helping do whatever. But now all of a sudden you're telling me to stay in a child's place.
Yeah.
But you've put me here.
Yeah.
So now he doesn't know what to do. Like, what is my role? What's my identity? Like, what am I supposed to be doing?
That's good
And
stuff.
so, but when that something happens and DHR gets involved or whatever the case may be, kids get separated. Things start happening. The role that this kid has always played, that's not my role anymore. So who am I? What am I supposed to do?
Yeah.
So then we start doing what? Trying to find places to fit in. We find the wrong crowds. We find the whatever, because guess what? I'm accepted now when I haven't been for, XYZ reasons.
Wow.
And that's the majority.
How do
Wow.
how do they cope
Yeah.
Right.
when something goes left?
Wow.
Yeah.
Right.
So that's some good stuff. You said something earlier about kids sometimes not being able to recognize love or what is love to them. There's this book for couples, the 5 love languages.
Absolutely. Yeah. There's
Right.
one for kids.
But there's one for kids,
Yes.
and that's what I was getting at.
Yes.
So like with my sons, like I try to, speak all the love languages. Same way I would do with my wife. I do with my boys. I'm always encouraging them. We're always gonna spend quality time together.
Right.
I'm gonna buy them gifts.
Right.
You know, I'm gonna give them when I do touch.
Mm-hmm.
So like instead of me just like kissing all, they're too old now for me to just be kissing on them all the time. So now, you know, I give hugs. We got our own handshake.
Right.
You know, we do dap when they get out the car, different little things like that. We still get that touch, you know. And so as parents, we have to understand like, hey, you can't just buy your kids stuff all the time and think that's their only, like every kid don't want gifts as it's like some kid you can bring in there and bring in 5 PlayStation 5 games and he's like, okay, Dad, well, I appreciate it and I thank you. But then the dad walks out the room and the kid's in there crying. He just slapped the games on the floor and the dad goes back in like, boys, you crazy? He's like, no, Dad, I actually want you to play the games with me.
Let's go.
You see what I'm saying? So it's not about, you just can't buy kids.
Right.
You know, go ahead. You ready? I know you're chomping at it. Let's go.
My wheels are turning. But because like the love languages are critical.
Yes.
The thing is if we don't learn those when we're young, we grow up to have some pretty dysfunctional relationships.
Mm-hmm.
So then our kids are seeing that.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like in certain households, the words I love you aren't said. The way they're showing you they love you is by putting clothes on your back, feeding you. You have a house to live in, a bed to sleep in. The words don't come out. But if that kid's love language, if he needs to hear that, if she needs to hear that, and parents are like, well, why do I have to tell you? Because I'm showing you. That kid's that need's never met for that kid. So then when they start having their own relationships, how functional is it?
They have, see, that's the thing. They have to push through the dysfunction. But they first have to know that it's dysfunctional.
Right.
And if they don't never get the knowledge to know that, hey, you know, like until you come around, I know Dwayne talks about it all the time. He was like, bro, like in his household growing up, you know, his dad loved him, but it was like they just wasn't really big. We macho, we men. He ain't just walking around saying, I love you. So it's like when he got around certain grown men,
some friends,
and we tell him like, love you, bro. He's like, what?
Hey, what?
I was like, but see, I grew up in a house like that. My dad, you know, he would say, I love you. Even to this day, I kiss my dad on the forehead. You know what I'm saying? But that wasn't something that was weird to us. That was our normal. And that was his normal. And that's their normal. But we have to be open-minded.
Absolutely.
And willing to have conversations and really see people, watch what they're doing, watch how they moving. Because I know right now, I'm jumping to a whole nother lane, but I know I've seen kids that get jealous or envy of the relationship that I have with my boys. Just because I love them in a different way their dad loves them. You know, and it's like you would think that it's like, man, that's pretty dope. But it's like, no, like it is not many kids, but it's just some kids. It's like, man, like I wish my dad would, you know, do that with me or take me here or build me up like that or support me like that or y'all got your own handshake. You know what I'm saying? Like
my kids is 19 and 21 now, and even their friends say to them like they wish they had parents or a father or a mother that would say and do things even at the age that they are now.
Right.
Come on. It never gets old.
That's what I was about to say. Like we're programmed for that.
Man, my dad called me like I'm 39, so it had to be about 4 or 5 years ago. He called me, and I think it was a random time he called me. He was like, well, son, I just want to let you know that I see all you're doing. He's like, I just want you to know that I love you.
Wow.
That I'm proud of you.
Man.
And I'm 35, 36. I'm like, I don't need that.
Up, man.
Yes,
what did it do for you?
It hit me.
Exactly.
It felt like, man, I had just got like a jolt of energy. It was just like, man, like.
You did. You had all those happy chemicals.
You see what I'm saying? Like, it does something to you. So I know, like, anytime I get an opportunity to, you know, to build my kids up and any kid, like if any kid, now don't get me wrong, I'm gonna get on them because I want the best for them.
Absolutely.
But after I get on to them, like even with my little baseball team right now, I'm like, okay, look, dude, you're supposed to run through first base. Next time, run through first base. Come on now, but good hit.
Absolutely.
You see what I'm saying? Like,
I call those sandwiches, and like sometimes it drives me crazy to hear people do the sandwiches, but other time, but kids especially kind of need it. It's like I'm gonna hype you up and do this, and then I'm gonna tell you what you did wrong, and then I'm gonna hype you up. And I'm not wired like that. I'm like, just tell me what I did wrong. I don't need the stuff. Like, and just tell me what I need to fix.
Some kids I can just straight say, hey, you gotta do better next time. You know what I'm saying? It depends on the relationship that I have with them, their skill set, their mentality, their personality, all that.
Yeah.
And some kids I know, like, man, if I go hard on this kid,
Right.
he may not come back for the next game. You know,
That's a true story.
Yeah.
Yes. But no, one of the things you're talking about as far as like, because what, kids care what adults think. One of the things, like, I've had 2 situations, and I'll be really quick with them, but and these kids will never leave my brain, never leave my mind, never leave my memory. I don't care how old I get, how old they get. They're like etched in my head. And one of them, he was a senior, and family did their thing. Family had their cycle, that they lived in, breathed in. This kid took his ACT his senior year. Stupid high on a score. Crazy high. Probation officer was like, dude, do you know what this means? He was like, no, I just took the test. We were like, you could go to any college that you wanted to. Anything you want to do, like, this is going to get you in there. He's like, I'm not going to college. I said, what? So I'm sitting there again with this crazy look on my face, like, wait a minute, what? And so the JPO was like, you've never considered it? And he was like, no. He was like, has anybody ever talked to you about like going to school, going to college? He was like, no, that's just nobody in my family did. Like, that's just not a thing. They kept family business going, you know? And so it hurt me to my heart, because I'm just like, how could this kid have so much unlocked potential and nobody knows?
Nobody knows about it.
So the JPO mentioned it to the mother, said, hey, this is what his score is. She was like, oh, okay. Like, what? Because nobody had ever poured into this kid. Nobody had ever said, sky's the limit for you if you want it to be.
Wow.
Never in life had he heard that. So 1.5 years, almost 2 years later, wrong place, wrong time, got locked up. Severe, like serious charges.
What?
Yes. And so it's just like, for what?
And you're scoring 30 plus on an ACT.
But this 30 plus, exactly. So this kid, he was one, if he saw my car in the parking lot, he didn't have to have group that day. He didn't have to have a session. If he saw my car in the parking lot, he knew he could come in, he would get a snack, and there was a couch in one of the offices, he'd take a nap. And I would let him, because I knew if he was there, he was safe. He wasn't doing anything crazy.
Wow.
But he knew I can get some quiet time. I can get some downtime. You know what I mean? And so I'll never forget that kid, because he impacted me, but I felt like in some way our office impacted him too. And that's why he knew he could come there for that quiet time, for that safe space. Flip side, I have another kid. Oh my goodness. Junior high, shows out every day at home and at school. You send him to detention or you send him to a placement, it's perfect. And they're like, why is he here? We asked him one day. It was me and his JPO in my office together. I was like, we got to tag team this because we got to figure out what's happening. He said, at home, I've always gotten in trouble. He's hyper. He's got anger issues, whatever. I'm always in trouble. They don't expect me to do good. So if I do good, now this expectation's there. And if I mess up, I'm going to disappoint everybody. But you go to a facility, nobody knows you there. So you go in being good. And that's the expectation that they keep for him. It's 12. And he's already recognizing this, So it's just like, how do we, in our helper positions, like, how do we pour into these kids? Like, how do we keep it consistent? How do we I know we can't take the place of what they have at home, but it's like, how can we pour into them while they're with us an hour, 2 hours that might change their whole life? And that's like a goal for me. It's like, what can I do?
Sow seeds.
For each kid. Absolutely.
That's all we can do.
Yeah.
Do the best we can. Sow seeds, show them love, show them authority, but support them, and let them know that, hey, there's no judgment here. And I think that's really, really key. Let's build that trust. There's no judgment here. I'll support you. I got you. I go to bat for you. Right. But listen, you got to help yourself.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? This is the Rescue Me project. You know what I'm saying? Like, we're here to help you rescue yourself.
Yeah.
Well, I got a random question. When you
Go ahead.
Okay, random question. How do you balance all this? So when you speak about these situations that you've had, how do you keep your sanity? How do you not take this home with you? How do you just balance everything out to the point where it doesn't affect you mentally?
My first 4 years working in that lockup, I got divorced. My mother stopped talking to me. My children didn't want to be around me because I carried it home with me every day. And when you're there working with some pretty severe behaviors, you're literally, as a staff, putting your
Consumed.
life in somebody else's hands because you never know what's going to happen. There's been riots there. There's been staff like be sent to the hospital. There's all kind of things that's happened. So you're constantly in defense mode, constantly. And so I'm in Walmart, but I'm at work. I'm watching, I'm scanning. I can't go anywhere now without knowing where all my exits are, knowing where I'm going to sit, knowing like just by the people way they walk across the room, how they're carrying themselves. So you pick up on all kind of nonverbals, facial expressions. Like I called you out earlier. I said, "Oh, I don't like your face the way you saw it. I don't like how you were reading that." And you were like, "What?" But it was just, I see things, but it's like I'm almost institutionalized to an extent because of what I've seen. And so my whole life changed. And so I was like, something has got my mother. She was like, "We love you, but we hate you while you're here," because it was that bad. And I didn't know. I didn't realize I'd pushed everybody else away because of all the things I was carrying. Like I was carrying their hurt, their anger, their whatever, not realizing I'd pushed literally everybody out of my life. And it's just like, okay, what do you do? Some traumatic things that had happened early. I'd lost my dad, daddy's girl. My whole world revolved around my dad. So when I lost them, I didn't know how to function. I didn't know how to do anything. And that's when I started working there. Was not long after I'd lost him. So I was still carrying that. So I was already in defense mode against the world anyway. Well, now you add the layer of all these, kids, and it was a lot. And so I had gotten out of church, all these things because I was angry, just with everything.
Yeah.
And so it took my son, who's 13 now, he was probably like 6 at the time. He's like, "Mama, how come we don't go back to church? How come we don't go to church?" And I was like, "What?" I was raised in church my whole life. Every time the door was open, you were there. Whatever, you were there. But I had denied that. I kind of prevented my kids from doing that because of the hurt that I was holding on to. And so once my kid got me back in church, it may sound crazy to some people, but it was like, that's what I needed to kind of reset. Like I had to be like, "God, I can't do this by myself." Clearly.
You can't.
I thought I could.
You can't.
Pretty tough. I've handled a lot.
You could do it by yourself.
I can't.
You won't be so dysfunctional.
Well, right.
And so depressed and down and out.
Exactly. And
So,
so, and people have mixed feelings. Like some people's like, because of what we do as a therapist or whatever, I can't let my religious beliefs or my, foundation or whatever interfere with my job. I'm on the flip side. I could not do this job
without
having it.
Let's go.
Yeah.
And I struggle with certain things, but also know like there may be lifestyles, there may be choices, there may be things that's happened that I may not agree with. But at the same time, there's so much more to this kid than just that. Certain things that they're doing is because of what's happening, that acceptance, that whatever. And so it's almost like God just let me be a vessel, like whatever I need to do, wherever I need to go. And so during my transition time, I guess you could say, I'd gotten a tattoo and it says, "Jireh, here I am, send me." And it's one of those, like, we stress about a lot of things, but at the end of the day, like I have to truly believe that he is going to provide whatever it is that I need. So here I am, whatever you need me to do, just put it out there. Let the resources be there. Let the people be there. Let the whoever connections be there, whatever needs to be there. I'm trusting that that's going to be there. And so I can't do my job without having that foundation. But there was a point in my life where I was a horrible human. And so when I say that, people are like, "I know how you used to be, but I promise that's not who I am anymore." And so I want to use that, like, not even telling that to the kids I work with, but I want them to be able to see that when they're in my office. And so I don't work in locations to where like religion is frowned upon. I need my employer to be like, "Hey, I get it. It is what it is." And so we can't push our beliefs on anybody. Right. I don't even bring it up in conversation unless the kids say it. So I have one cross in my office. Like, we're not even really supposed to have decorations, but luckily my location now, they're all for it.
You got a good boss. I'm telling you, I know.
Phenomenal.
Yes.
So I love that one little cross in there gets people's attention when it needs to. And it's like, I don't even have to say anything. Like, I want them to feel that there's no judgment. I want them to feel that I don't care what you have going on in your life. Like, you can just come hang out. Like, it is what it is. I don't have to agree with what you're doing. But at the same time, I need these kids to understand too, these decisions that you're making and the things that you're in and the role that you're trying to play, you can't be mad when everybody around you is not accepting it either. Because the choices we're making choice is for you. Your choices aren't for anybody else.
Right.
You have to live with your choices, good, bad, or ugly. And so whatever it is that you're, going through, struggling with, whatever, that's your choice. But you have to understand you're going to have people to support you, and you're going to have people who don't. Unfortunately, that's just part of it. That's reality. It is what it is. And a lot of kids struggle with that because they feel like everybody should accept it, or accept anything that they're doing. So anyway, so that's how I keep my sanity. I don't even know how I got off of it, is I have to have that foundation. I have to constantly.
You have to have an outlet.
Yeah.
When you was talking, it sounded like the therapist needed a therapist.
And that's the truth. And
like real talk, like it's like
we do. I mean, we say that we need that soundboard. We need that processing. Yes. And I am, man, I'm so fortunate for the people who's in my circle, because they can just look and be like, Valena's having a bad day today. And so, but they know whether it's the music I'm listening to or like whatever the case, they just know.
Man, if you be around females long enough, when y'all are.
If you're around people,
we're talking about females right now. Though.
Oh, okay.
Talking about because you're a female, so we're talking about females.
Okay.
But because y'all wear y'all emotions different, like the few females that I'm close with in my life, I know for a fact, right. Like, hey, they want distance. Right. They need to just hey, look, you go have you a spa day. Look, go just be by yourself. Just go, and some people like even Miss Bird, like we know when she's having an off day. It's like, but she wears it on her face, and it's like, Birdie, come on. Right. But see, it's different with her though. I'm still gonna go give her a hug. I'm still gonna mess with her. You know what I'm saying? It's just, but we can just tell, like, when things are weighing on y'all as compared to most men. Most men. Go ahead. You want to say something?
Well, I think females could argue that point, or like kind of flip it.
Argue the point. I want you to argue the point. Come on.
Okay, not necessarily arguing it, but like
state your case.
Yeah.
But I can. Sheesh.
You fine. I'm so glad you're comfortable now. Let's go.
But I think we can flip it because, like you guys, some males.
Bro, you ain't that thirsty.
You don't show weakness. Like, you don't show when things are bothering you. You don't show emotions. And my son struggled with that for a long time. Well, Daddy says, like, boys don't cry. And I had to have a come to Jesus with Daddy, like, hold on. Because I need him to know that it's okay.
Yes.
If you're having a bad day, it's okay. If you get mad, fine. If you want to cry, cry.
Yeah.
You holding it in. And I talk about all the health issues that we can have from just holding stuff in. High blood pressure, aneurysms, strokes, the stress being so high, stomach ulcers. It's not worth it if I can just kind of vent and process, And so there was a quote that the mentor that I was talking about told me, he's like, our bodies weep the tears that our eyes refuse to shed. And that's
good.
That's what we notice more so in men, if that makes sense.
I know. I would have to agree with you on that because I do see a lot of men that we hold stuff in. We don't like to talk, whether it's to our spouse or anybody. Like, we just deal with it. You know what I'm saying? We've been taught to deal with it. And then, like you said, if the man doesn't know how to, but if the man doesn't know how to deal with stress, you see his body starts to break down. And what's so crazy is stress is invisible.
Silent killer.
But it will have a tangible and a visible effect on your body, on your mind, and on your relationships if you do not pay attention to it and get help and vent and talk and do whatever. There's a lot of different ways you can relieve stress. But yeah, I do agree with you on that. We do have issues when it comes to showing our emotions, because like that's a topic we talked about before. Men that are silent, silent men, we feel like we can't talk for whatever reason. Maybe as a child, we were suppressed, like you said, as a child, you don't cry, and so now you're teaching your kids not to learn how to express emotions. So now when they get grown and they dealing with something they really need to talk to their spouse about, and they can't talk to her for whatever reason, now they build resentment. Now they're bitter. Now they're no longer in love. Next thing you know, now you're divorced. So it can go as deep as we will allow it to go. Especially, like I say, it still goes back to us not being knowledgeable. us not knowing, you know what I'm saying, like, bruh, or not having a group of men or
Right.
couples you can hang around that can really lay it out. Like, nah, bro, that's
You have to have a
yes,
skill. Like, you
yes.
have to.
Okay. Look, we gonna have to move on
Okay.
because well, we just coasting. We sitting right here. So let's move on to this one. I'm probably gonna jump around now just for sake of time.
Okay.
But let's look at this one right here. It says, what role does an environment play in shaping the behaviors and mental health of teens? How does the environment affect that?
Oh goodness. Kind of like what you guys are doing here. You've got that positive environment for them. So you ask kids, like you can see their faces, like who's super excited to be here, but then the flip side is we also know some of the environments that they're going back home to. And so as therapists, I can tell you all day long, we can talk, I can teach you tricks I can teach you tricks to calm down, or I can teach you tricks to whatever, but when you go back into that environment, who's causing you to be that way, how likely are you to implement those things? And so we have to look at I always say the good, the bad, and the ugly. Everything is going to affect us. And so if we're in a situation where you have to look at what neighborhood kids grow up in.
True.
You have to look at who lives in the house.
True.
Who's raising them. We look at, is there a history of other mental health issues in the family? Is there a history of substance use? If it is, like these kids are seeing this all day long, how is that going to affect them? Because like there's a thing on Facebook, two brothers had an alcoholic dad. One brother becomes an alcoholic, the other one doesn't. That is the truth.
Yes.
Because we're exposed to everything. And again, it goes back to choice. Like, what choice am I going to make, to do this? But no, environment is, it's, you have to pay attention to it. And like we mentioned, or I talked about earlier, my kid in school, like this environment was not good for her, so I had to send her somewhere that I knew she could actually reach her potential and, thrive. Exactly. But it goes, like I said, both ways, but it's also, who do you have in that environment that they can look up to?
Okay.
They need the mentors. They need the positive. Everything you guys are doing here answers a lot of these questions.
So what can a person that's living in what we would call a not so favorable environment, what can they do outside of getting, being around mentors and being in a program? What can they actually do at home that will help them escape or be prepared, or even to not necessarily let the environment, infect them and let it metabolize in their life, but the opposite effect?
I can kind of do the type of therapy that I do is like reality therapy kind of thing. So it's got choice theory. And so literally everything we do, we're making a choice, but every choice has a consequence. And so we do a lot of like it's almost like reprogramming your brain. You got to rewire it, because we have a saying, what you focus on grows. And that's anything, good or bad. So like you buy a brand new car, it's black. Now you see every black vehicle that drives by you that you didn't notice before. You buy a new pair of shoes. Well, now you see all these people who have the same shoes you do, because that's what you're focused on. So that goes with anything. If I'm focused on how stressed I am all the time, and I'm constantly complaining, and I'm constantly, being critical, and I'm constantly just feeding those negative thoughts, that's what your brain is trained to recognize. So it was like you replace the bad with the good. And so the easiest way for me to describe it, like with my little kids, it's like, when you have a thought, when you have these, different things going on, every thought you have kind of creates like this, we'll say like a little ditch in your brain. If we don't want to feel those like bad thoughts anymore, we call it listening for the liar. How many times a day does that liar come in your head to tell you I'm not good enough, I'm not smart enough, I'm not quick enough, I'm not whatever? So I do a challenge with my teenagers, 48-hour challenge. Make a list of every single time you hear that liar. Now what? Do you believe those? Are those your truths? If not, we need to replace them with the truths. So those trenches, those little ditches stay. And so if you take the negative out, fine, but it's needing something to replace it. So we do like the positive affirmations, we do the journaling, we do the all these positive I statements, anything that we can do. And some people are like, oh, I don't believe in that, whatever. Well, you don't have to believe in it, it's fine. But luckily, there's so much research now that we do, especially with substance use, that talks about, the affirmations and like the rewiring. Because why are we struggling? Because we're masking something that we're going through, all these negative things, that we've been programmed to do. We can replace that.
Yeah.
Like we can totally reprogram that.
I don't think kids understand that what's negative is always available.
Right.
Like I think they just living, but they don't realize that most of the things that they're doing or exposed to is negative.
Mhm.
The music they listen to is negative. And I tell them all the time, I say, you never have to wake up and say, I'm going to put on negative music.
Mhm.
You have to say, well, I'm going to put on something positive today.
Right. Absolutely.
Because 9 times out of 10, what's already playing is already negative.
Right.
So when you wake up, you literally step into a negative world. So now the
Yeah.
battle begins from the moment you wake up.
So,
How are you going to offset
that-
your mind?
like you said that. Yeah.
Come on.
That's it.
So, and that be the thing, like, but they don't realize that.
Right.
So when I'm driving my kids to school in the morning, my youngest boy, I recite an affirmation, like it's like 12 of them, and he has to repeat after me. I drop him off on the way to drop my oldest son off. He has to recite them to me, and I repeat after him. And they're probably like, man, we've been doing this for 2-3 years. Why are we doing
Keep
this?
it up. Absolutely.
I'm like, because y'all don't understand.
Yep.
You know, I understand the power of the words and affirmation.
Yep.
Just
Power in the tongue.
Yes.
Sure. We speak life or death into
Yes.
us, the people around us, our circle.
So think about what you just said, though. You said we speak life to others, right? So that means when you're listening to music, that music is words. It's from somebody's tongue.
Yeah.
So that music is speaking life or death over our seeds, over our sons, over our daughters. But we just sit there and let them listen to anything.
Right. Well, yes. And like there's even so many studies now, which I'm fascinated by, like the speed that music is recorded to. You know, like there's
The frequency.
Yeah. Like
Yes.
all of it. You know, and so it's just like, why? The most depressed kid I've ever worked with was obsessed with Billie Eilish. I can't stomach it. Like I get physically nauseous. Like when I just can't. But it's like they feed into that, and that's all they hear. And it's just like you are like making yourself.
Yes.
I don't want to say,
But they don't.
Like
But they don't understand.
They don't believe that. Yeah, no. But I think the entertainers know that. They know the world they live in. They know the influence they have through music.
The entertainers is not the ones that know it. It's their bosses. It's
But
the
they
ones
know
that
it too.
it's the ones that run the
They know it
companies.
too.
They sit down in meetings and say, hey,
Yeah.
we need to get these artists to talk about this so that we can, you know, influence the next generations. Because at hip hop at one point in time was all about positivity.
Right.
Now, I mean, it's you very rarely find an artist that don't use profanity,
Right.
that's not glorifying the wrong things, money, cars, material things, women, drugs. It's very rare that you get somebody that's glorifying, you know, the right things. And that's one of the reasons why I like D1 so much. Like he is bold. He wherever he goes, he's gonna talk about when he's rapping, whatever he's rapping about is about the right stuff. And he challenges other rappers. Like, look, man, we gotta stop poisoning our own kids.
Right.
You sitting here going, trying to get up with politicians to do a gun reform, but yet you rapping about killing.
Right.
It's like, bro, like, what are we doing?
Right.
So that'd be my thing, man. Like, but music is the words that's in the music are very powerful. And what are you watching?
Absolutely.
You know,
Yes.
we had to cut our kids off YouTube.
Yes.
But even on YouTube, when they was on it, it was like you can watch sports
Right.
and you can do educational stuff.
Yeah.
But then with them watching sports, I'm like, okay, I hear the music in the background.
I was like, it rolls into something else.
Or the commercial, the ad that pops up. I was like, okay, y'all done with YouTube. Cold turkey. Like, and they complained a couple of days and it was over it.
Yeah.
I was like, because I understand, like, and like going back to how people say the kids will say we was mean. I'm mean, right? But I've had like family members say, like, bro, you too tough on them boys. Like, how you gonna tell me that I'm too tough? Because I'm raising men.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I'm raising them to be respectful.
Right.
I'm raising men that your daughters would want to marry.
Right.
You feel me?
Yes.
So it's like, no, like, look, you worry about you.
Right.
And when they grow up and they end up being some kids that ain't grown men that ain't worth nothing, then come back and say, boy, you failed. But that ain't gonna
But
happen.
until then.
Until then, let me do what I'm doing.
Yeah.
They get a lot of love and they get a little bit of discipline.
Yeah.
I can actually discipline a whole lot more than what I do. They get a lot of grace. They get a lot of grace.
Right.
But anyway, I don't know how we got on that, but go ahead.
But I was just gonna say, like we talked about, like, you know, what do you do to kind of help them? Like they've got to find what we call coping skills. They've
Mhm.
got to find something as an outlet. They've got to find something that excites them, that interests them. And that's why, you know, I think one of the questions says, like, you know, how do you notice red flags? Well, one of the biggest things, you know, that I tell parents, like, are there things that they used to be like super hype about and now they don't even do it? They don't touch it. They don't want to pick it up. You know, oh yeah, well, they used to play the guitar, or they used to draw, or they used to play baseball, whatever. And they've stopped. stopped. Well, why?
Hmm.
Why do they stop? Yes, sometimes we lose interest. As we get older, our interests change, fine. But are we sure that that's why? Like what else has happened? And a lot of times that's how we can, kind of recognize, is there some depression sitting in, or is there some substance use happening? Like what's going on? Or like when the seasons change, you notice like kids, he'll wear a t-shirt and shorts every day, but all of a sudden he's wearing all pants, hoodies, head covered up, whatever. And it's just like, okay, again, are we dealing with some depression? Are we dealing with just some, just kind of some isolation? Like maybe they're just kind of processing things on their own. Maybe they just want to be alone. Or are we self-harming? Yeah. Like, what are we covering up? We're creatures of habit. So the second we change something and the second we flip something, that can be a red flag.
Yeah.
Like parents need to be,
but you got to be in tune with your kids.
That's what I was about to say. And there's too many parents who aren't because I don't have time for this. And so when I will see mothers scrolling on their phone and the whole mama, or we'll be in the store or wherever. And I'm just like, do you not hear your child speaking to you? So little things like that. And I know sometimes we have to kind of like, but in general, like, no, you have to know what's going on with your kid. You need to know your friends or their friend circle. You need to know where they're going.
Come on, you on it.
Life 360.
Yes,
the greatest.
I got it.
I don't like it because my children, Mom, like, where are you at? Like, what road are you on? Like, I don't know where you're at. What? But I love the fact that I can pull it up and see where my kids are.
Right.
Am I stalking them? No, like they're my kids. Of course I'm going to know where you're at and what you're doing and who's going to be there. That's not parents over,
No, it's not because
But then you have kids, who are entitled to do whatever it is that they want to do. And the second somebody comes in to try to show the tough love or try to show them rules or try to show them whatever, they buck the system.
Yes.
They're disrespectful. They're doing whatever because nobody's ever seen that kind of love.
We had that happen in my high school when we had a coach to come in. He was an assistant principal, which he was a disciplinary principal, and then he was the head basketball coach, black male. And a lot of the guys never seen a black male operate the way he did. And so they bucked him. They were disrespectful. And he was just really trying to instill in them the things they need to be, young men. And when
life skills.
Right. Yeah. Yes. Just being respectful. Right. Your life skills. Yeah. And so when he retired, I went back to, now I wasn't one of the kids that was disrespectful to him because like I said, I understood what he was doing. But I was still a little knucklehead from time to time, but nothing like what nothing like what these other jokers was doing. But to be honest, they didn't know no better. But anyway, so at his retirement, I was like, Coach, man, I want to apologize to you.
Oh man, it's deep.
For all the kids that did not realize what you was trying to do for them. Right. I was like, man, from you teaching us to be respectful, look a man in the eye, to go hard at whatever you do, to wear your pants up, just looking like somebody, right. And instilling us the importance of education, the importance of working together as a team and seeing you operate and loving your wife and caring for your family the way you do. I was like, man, I want to apologize. I was like, we didn't realize what we had in you. Right. So that's just how important it is to have a male figure, that's going to challenge you. Right. And it don't have to be your father. But if you're out there and there's somebody in your life and you've never, as a kid, you've never seen that authority figure and you're playing a sport or you come across this teacher or you come across anybody and they start pouring into you like that, that's love. Mm-hmm. You just don't know how to recognize it. That is love because they're challenging you to be the best version of yourself. But in order to do that, they got to start digging and digging and digging. And hopefully once they dig, they can find that diamond. Right. What you got? You got something else?
I have all kind of things for days.
Well, let me hit you with this question right here. It says, what successful methods have you seen build resilience in teens?
Programs like this, like we had said, programs like this.
Programs, okay.
Yes. Getting them a tribe, getting them a circle of people that they need. And again, like we go back to this, well, I have anxiety. I don't want to be around people. Okay. We gotta pull it out. And so I push a lot of buttons, so I ask a lot of questions. And so kids are just like, oh my God. But no, every time you answer me, we're going to dig a little deeper in each answer that you give. I don't allow the words "I don't know"
Okay,
in my
that's good.
office. Why don't you know? What do you mean? You're the only one who knows. It may not make sense to anybody else, but you're the only one who knows why you do what you do. I would much rather you tell me because I felt like it than to tell me I don't know.
Mhm.
So then when we say that, then we can kind of dig a little more, you know. So it's getting them to see, like, to be comfortable enough to speak out on what's going on. And that's one thing that hurts, you know, a lot of the kids is they're trying to tell their parents, or they're trying, Mom, I need to talk to somebody. Like, you know, I'm going through this and this, and parents are upset. Well, what happens in the house
Stays in the house.
and it's like, well, you can go, but you just can't talk about this.
That's pride.
You know, well, a lot of times it's like, well, what are you covering up? You know, and those kids, when they get that rapport with you, they're still going to tell you what Mom and Dad told them.
Oh yeah.
You know, and does it hurt us sometimes? Yes. But at the same time, it's like, if this kid's willing to tell Mom, I need this, or, you know, Dad, I need to do this.
They're desperate.
Right. Listen to them. And when they do tell you, well, Mom or Dad, like, this is what's bothering me, do not respond with, that's nothing to be upset over, or that's nothing. It's something to them. Like, it's pretty important to them. Like, if that's what they're telling you, that's pretty important, regardless if it makes any sense to us, or we're just thinking it's totally crazy. If they're willing to tell you that and they're trying to talk to you, let it be important to them, you know. And it just,
I can see that, because just going back to how we, you know, like I said, with kids, we tell them basically, you know, suppress their emotions. Like, no, you can't cry. No, this and that. And so we do have to get to the point to where when a teen or a child brings something, it's bothering them. And especially for them to say something to you, you know, is really touching them in a special place. Right. So we can't just, you know, push it to the side.
Right.
We really have to, because think about it. If it was you with those same emotions and you came to your spouse or your mother or your friend or somebody that you know, and you said, hey man, I'm feeling like this, or hey man, I need to talk to somebody, or man, hey man, this is really bothering me. You would hope that your friend or your spouse is not going to say, oh man, that ain't nothing. Girl, you tripping. Like, boy, you tripping. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Like, just dismiss how you feeling. Right. Like, no, like I'm feeling this for a reason. And that's one thing we talk about a lot of times is emotional maturity.
Yes.
Learning how, emotional intelligence, learning how to deal with your emotions, because you have to feel them, because whether you want to or not, you're going to feel it. Right. You're going to feel the hurt. Right. You're going to feel the sadness. Right. You're going to feel betrayal. You're going to feel all these different things. So now, how do we respond to it?
Right. Oh, yes. So several things. Oh my goodness. I'm going to hurry. I promise.
No, you're good.
So, like, you got to feel your feels. I love the fact that our area has so many counseling services, social workers, therapists, counselors, whatever, because every single one of us has our own style.
True.
You know? And so I handle trauma things a little differently than some of my peers.
Right.
I have peers who are like, no, you have to feel your feels and you have to sit in it as long as those feelings are lasting and whatever. Okay, great. That's not how I function. That's not how I was trained to function. And so it's one of these, like, yes, you have to feel your feels. You have to feel them enough to acknowledge what it is that I'm feeling. That way, every time that feeling comes up, we recognize, oh, well, that's what this is. And then we have to learn whatever coping mechanism we need to learn to deal with that emotion. And so, because if we don't ever learn what it is, it's just that blah feeling. Yeah. It's like that icky whatever. And so one of the best tools I think we have out there is like the emotion wheel, the feeling wheel. And so we'll get it up there and it's like, you know, several different feelings. So you have anger, but there's like 10 different things for anger. There's happiness. There's 10 different things for happiness, but it's like different levels.
What's it called?
It's a feelings wheel.
Feelings.
Yeah.
I'm going to look that up.
So
it's a feelings wheel, y'all. I looked it up.
But it's one of those things, like, I love showing kids that they've got like kid versions and they have like, you know, like adult versions or whatever, but let them describe to you, where are you feeling it? Are you feeling it in your hands? Are your hands tingly? You know, is your chest hurt? Like, you want them to acknowledge every single thing they can about that particular feeling. So we're feeling it. We're acknowledging that it's there. We've identified what it was. Most time when we get to that point, we can kind of figure out where it came from. Well, what happened? What triggered you to feel that way? And then when they start talking, you find the root problem of what's happening.
That's good.
And so when I deal with the sadness and the depression and things like that, yes, we're going to feel them, but what you focus on grows.
Ooh.
So we have a struggle story. Every single person on the planet has a struggle story.
Yes, yes,
I worked with a life coach for like 3 years. She's phenomenal. And that was what she told her clients. We all have a struggle story. But at some point, when are we going to say, you know what? That story doesn't serve me anymore. That's not who I am. That's not where I'm going to go back to. That's not what I want to display to other people.
Mhm.
So when do we stop that struggle story and rewrite our story?
Now what?
We got to rewrite it.
Mhm.
And that's where the reprogramming comes
That's
in.
good.
And so feel your feels, absolutely. But if you sit in it and let that be your handicap, you're never going to feel better. You're never going to have productive relationships with anybody. You can't have like, I don't even want to say civil interactions, but you can't have that, that free flow style of a relationship, like communication with people, because, well, I've had things happen to me that's traumatic. Well, yes, we all have to an extent, or most of us have, how much of that are we going to let determine who we are? Like our identity. And you have people who thrive in it. And that's the scary part. And so there's a local high school, there's cliques. And a kid told me that in one clique, it's like the kids who have, all these mental health issues. Like they talk about their diagnoses, like at lunch or whatever.
Yeah.
And it's like one of them was really feeling depressed. So one kid says, well, what do you do when you're depressed? And they told like kind of what they did. And well, you're not depressed enough. Like what? So they're letting things become their identity.
Different levels.
So it's like, how do I reprogram this? How do I not let my story identify who I am? Like, when does it stop serving me?
Yeah.
And that's my style. That's what we do. My people, we flip it. It's like, okay, we can let it handicap us or we can let it help us. Like we
and
have
that's that motivational aspect that you have.
Right.
It's like that life is the glass is half full, not half empty. That optimism,
Right.
The inspiration is like that hope.
But it's the science behind it. Like it's a real thing.
Yeah.
I mean, it serves so many purposes and we don't think about the science aspect of it.
So how do you help people that they're hurting? They've been hurt by somebody or someone or a group of people or organization or a business or whatever. They're hurting, but they want to understand why. Why did they do this? Why did this happen to me? Like, how do you, when you're in a session with people, like, how do you respond to that?
I focus a lot on forgiveness.
Okay.
And forgiveness is not for that person. It's for us.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes we don't get the closure that we feel like we deserve. Sometimes we don't get that explanation, like, why did all of these things happen to me? Like, was I that bad of a person? Or was it, did I do things to hurt people and I didn't realize I hurt people? And this is my karma. We all have questions. We all have whatever. But it's getting them to understand that you just might not get it.
Mm.
So am I going to let this one situation control me for the rest of my life? Because that's what we're doing. We're giving that power to that situation and it controls us. We hold grudges. That's one thing with like emotional loops and things. One of the coping skills that I teach is, we call it PVC. And this is, what our life coach did. Like she just like, okay, guys, like this is what we're doing. And so it's pause, visualize, and celebrate. So you take a pause and it's deep breathing. Deep breath, like the big belly breaths for at least 90 seconds. As you're doing that deep breathing, you're doing two things. One, you're calming yourself. You're activating that vagus nerve to send those signals to kind of send to your brain like, hey, I'm calm, I'm safe, I'm whatever. But you got to do it at least 90 seconds because that's how long it takes that chemical emotional response for that emotion to go through your body.
Mm.
So then after that 90 seconds, what are we doing? We're choosing to feel one way or the other. So when you start breathing it and you start calming it, there's power in the pause, is what we always say. So during that pause, that can be meditation, that can be prayer, that can be whatever. You're just breathing to kind of bring yourself down. When you get past that 90 seconds, visualize. What am I wanting out of the situation? Mm-hmm. Am I wanting to stay calm? Am I wanting to, whatever the case may be, depending on the situation. That's your visualize. Mm-hmm. How is this going to help me? How am I, question. I mean, we'll go through different questions to ask yourself during that time. And the last one is celebrate. When you've gone through that breathing and you visualize what it is that you want, when you get calm, it's like, I didn't yell at that person, or I didn't slam the door in their face. Whatever the case may be, immediately your brain starts releasing those happy chemicals. That dopamine release just shoots through, and it's just like, I feel better. Good. But kids don't know that. Adults don't know that. Like we control more of our life than we ever give ourselves credit for. So again, how long is your story going to serve you? Like, how long are we going to be on this? Like, you know, we've been
Pity
upset
party.
about this for 6 weeks. Like, when are we
Yeah.
going to move on? You know, but that's why, like, we're focusing on only that.
Yeah. So you recognize the problem.
Right.
We recognize the problem. We evaluate the problem. We understand it, maybe not fully,
Mhm.
but now what are you going to do? It's like I said earlier, we always say, now what? Like we were talking about the example we gave earlier. We go to the detention center. We have the kids raise their hand, and 17 out of 20 don't have the father figure in their life. Now what?
Mhm.
We're no longer going to use that as an excuse for you to come back here.
Right. Well, and we have to look at statistics too. Like, we don't like them. They're ugly, but we have to look at them.
Mhm.
So like, different studies will show from the ages of like 0 to 5. Some studies say 0 to 7, but that time frame, that's what's programmed us.
Mhm.
So everything a kid has seen, heard, witnessed, experienced, whatever, in those first
Mhm.
5 to 7 years,
Mhm.
that's what's there
Mhm.
as they get older and
Mhm.
become an adult. So then a lot of parents are just like, oh my gosh, like they've witnessed domestic violence, or they've witnessed this, or what they've witnessed this. All these things have happened. That's what's programmed that kid. So their chemical balances are based on the things that they've experienced. And so different parts of your brain activate during different times. So we have, it's like our smoke alarm, like
Yeah.
an amygdala. It's like this little, I don't know, little cashew looking thing. Okay. I describe it to my kids as like a video game reset button.
Mhm.
So when you do that deep breathing, you're restarting that amygdala. It's an amygdala reset. That's your smoke alarm. That's your danger brain, like your panic thing. So people who stay hype, who stay anxious, who stay in like, I say like PTSD driven mode, like that amygdala is constantly going. Well, then that amygdala is going to go to something right above it. It's called a hippocampus. That's what's responsible for our memory and learning, things like that. So we have this panic. It's relaying these messages to different, parts of the brain. Well, now we've created a memory based on that experience. If that amygdala is super, super high active, that danger zone is high active, the functional part of your brain that helps you with like reasoning and logic to help things make sense, it's shut off. It's like it's offline. So you see people who's like in panic, like a whole panic attack. Nothing, they can't make sense of anything. They have no logic. Like, you're being irrational. Why are you so upset? Because that part of their brain is literally shut off.
Wow.
It doesn't activate until everything else starts calming down. And so
That's deep.
that's why we teach the deep breathing.
That's science.
Because it's one big, like, it's breathing that resets literally everything in us. And
so the breath of life.
you took the words out of my mouth. That's what I was about to say. Like, that speaks so much.
It does.
I mean, I opened my mouth to say it and you said it. It's beautiful. But that's it. Like, there's so much and we're ignoring it. Like, we were created to do some really cool things.
Okay, so I don't know if it's funny or whatever. People say it's funny that you say that though, because at one point I would do deep breaths anytime I would feel like anything coming on, and I would do it where it was like peace.
Yeah,
I would name it.
Yeah.
Relaxation, joy, whatever I feel like the enemy was coming at me with, I would name it something. I would take that deep breath and I would just call it whatever the thing is I needed for it to be in that moment.
The opposite.
Yes, the opposite.
Yes.
And when you said what you were saying and the breath of life came to me, I was like, man, the way God just created us, it's deep, 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 deep.
Right.
Of all the different details you can possibly give, you really were to study the thing and see down to the smallest God with his infinite wisdom set our bodies up for it to function in such a magical way that we can't even explain it. Just like I asked the doctor when my wife was pregnant with the first child, she was explaining how he was in the sac and there's fluid in the sac. And I was like, well, how's he breathing? Right. She was like, we don't know.
It's kind of like a fish. That's what we think.
But you think, like, you're in a sac that's full of fluid. How are you breathing? Like, that's God. Like, I don't understand. Like, but that's a whole other topic.
Yes. I agree. But that's it. Like, we are created to do so much more for ourselves and have so much more control of ourselves than what we give ourselves credit for. And so, again, in my office, we're not doing a lot of whining. We're not doing a lot of excuses. We're not. No, because why? why? Like, how is that helping you? It's
Right.
not, you've done it this whole time. It hasn't helped you at all. What are we going to do different? Like,
Gotcha.
now we got to get a different game plan. And so my style's a little, I don't say rougher. Like, I'm not mean to anybody. They know I love them to death.
Mhm.
But like, as a joke, you know, like I have boot camp on my sweatshirt because that's just my style.
That's good
So
though.
the other therapist will be like, hey, you know what? You're going to have to go see Miss V
Yeah.
next week because we got to get a different game plan.
Yeah.
So I'll get a treatment plan together, send them back to the therapist. It's like, hey, this is what we're doing.
Well, see, that's like when we go speak at schools. Like, we don't just bring one speaker.
Right.
Because I could think I'm the dopest speaker in the world, but that kid may not vibe with me. I may be too in the face. I may be too challenging to them. You know what I'm saying? So we'll have Dwayne, we'll have Alan, we'll have Be Real Steve, we'll have. I mean, like,
Right. Of course.
we got to give them. We like to give them a buffet. You know, you pick who you want to eat from.
Yeah.
You know, so and I get that. So and the reason why I'm saying it is because, like you were saying about your therapist, like, look, you may not be the therapist for everybody,
And I'm not.
Right.
No, I'm not.
but the next person is nobody's a therapist for everybody.
Right.
You know, so that's why there's so many different ones out there, and that's why it's just so important to keep doing what you're doing, because the ones that you're supposed to reach, you will reach.
And that's, I think, like I said, again, the beautiful part of us having so many different people, like all the, I have probation officers and attorneys to call me, like if they hadn't heard from them or they haven't heard from me in a while, like, hey, like, are you still at so-and-so? And I'm like, yeah, okay, I got a kid for you. Okay. Like they find me.
Yeah,
They say, like,
because they know what
I've
this
had
kid needs.
judges call my cell phone and say, hey, I need you to take this kid. So I see a judge name pop up. I'm like, why is he calling me? Valena, I need you to take this kid. Okay. You know, how do you say no to that? You can't.
Right.
But it's like, but they know, like, they know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
You know,
yes.
and it's worked, you know, for the ones that that we do, you know, and so it's just, it's a great thing. And no, I'm not everybody's cup of tea.
Right.
And that's okay.
I'm not either.
You know, yeah.
And I understand that, like,
Yeah.
like even with me, like I say, how I coach kids, like the kids love me, but some kids really love me.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Because my style may not be, you know, like my basketball team, that it was a TVBA basketball team. That's real basketball.
Right, right.
So, you know, I gotta really coach you, you know, so. And you could tell some of the kids respond, you know, different from my coaching style. But I'm like, look, I had to tell them, look, when I'm yelling at y'all, I'm not mad.
Right.
I'm not mad at y'all. I may be frustrated, but I'm not mad at y'all. Because y'all are, I know y'all not out here making mistakes on purpose.
Right.
So, and I'm trying to get you guys better. I'm trying to get you guys to, you know, to understand, to see the game, you know, at a higher level. But, you know what I'm saying? That's just my style. Still love y'all.
Right.
You know, so.
Right, of course. And I think coming from like an athletic background, like you understand too, like I have to tell my kids who are there for anger management, you know, like I don't like when the coach yells and screams at me. I was like, dude, be glad he's doing it. Because when he shuts up, it's the problem. Then he don't care if you make it or not. He's putting into you. He's trying to get your attention. He's trying to bring this potential out of you that you don't even see. So you're trying to like let other people pull this out, and you're getting mad. It's like if he didn't care about you, I promise he wouldn't say nothing to you. He'd go talk to somebody else.
Give me your thoughts on this. I had a kid one day in group said he has ankle problems. And I was like, bro, so you got ankle problems? He was like, yeah, man, I just get mad. I just, you know what I'm saying, just do whatever. And I was like, bet. I was like, so he's a little dude. So I was like, you see this dude over here? I said, he's about 6'5", 300. If he come up to you and get in your face and say something to him, you're going to be mad and swing at him? He was like, no. And I said, what about me? He was like, no. I said, well, do you really have an ankle problem? Or do you have a decision problem? So give me some feedback on that.
Reasons for anger: fear and lack of power and control. When we get angry, one of those two things is happening. We're fearful of what's about to happen, of the unknown, or we don't have control of what's happening. So one thing is, as a parent, we get upset with our kids, but usually they've done something kind of like a bonehead, you know? So it's like, we can see the consequences more than they can. And so we're fearful. You're at the wrong place at the wrong time. We're angry, but we're scared, you know? And so we have to find out, why is he angry? Is he fearful of something? Or is it, I don't have control over what's happening at my house, and you know, I can't release it any other way. So, and the only thing I know to do is to be angry, when really it's not anger at all. It's something totally different. But anger is one of these big umbrella emotions.
Yeah. Okay.
You know, but it's usually
you're very knowledgeable
from one of those.
Yeah. I'm so glad we got boot camp.
I mean, you're very knowledgeable.
I'm a nerd, guys. Like I will nerd out for hours.
You're dropping jewels. You're dropping gems. I mean, it has been dope having you on the show.
Yes.
Like, I mean, like seriously, like, and you can tell because it's just flowing. Like once you get going, it ain't. Hey, you ain't got to really think about it. No, you're good. we about to hit our last question and we done.
Okay.
So I'm gonna go ahead and throw this last question out to you, and then we'll tackle this one, and then Dwayne will close us out. All right.
Is it one on the page?
It's on the page. It's on the page. We got one left.
Okay.
This is the last one. It says, How can parents and caregivers effectively support their teens while ensuring their well-being and future success? And we probably talked about this a little bit, but just go ahead and hit
Listening. Just listen
it. Listening.
to them. Don't shut them down when they're mid-sentence.
Listening.
I love my mother more than life itself, but I hated talking to her because I couldn't get my first sentence out before she'd already told me I was wrong and how I was feeling. Like, what? And so you learn that. So you learn who to open up to. And if you can't talk to your family, fine, don't. But have some trusted adult or some trusted soundboard that you can kind of talk to. I tell families, parents all the time, like, eat dinner together as a family as often as possible. No electronics, no nothing. I've had parents tell me they didn't know what to talk about because they hadn't sat down and had a real conversation with their kids in so long. They didn't. And so asking, well, how was your day? Seemed kind of boring. You know what I mean? And talk time. Like set aside like talk time for each kid. Because a lot of times siblings close in age, they're jealous of the other one because, well, daddy's paying more attention to you or mom's doing more of this. Schedule a time. Like, hey, buddy, like tonight you get 15 minutes, whatever. Like, you don't have to be long and drawn out. But just for them to know,
I like that.
This is your talk time.
You're
like
good.
Anything and everything we want to talk
You're
about.
Good.
We can. Like your game. Like whatever you want to do, and whatever we have. Like we talk about special playtime with the little ones. I was never clearly. You can look at me and tell. Never been a girly girl a day in my life. My daughters are the girliest girls on the planet. They always wanted to play with Barbies and they always wanted to play with doll houses. I don't know how to do those things. Okay. Like I had them when I was little, but they collected dust and my mom got rid of them.
Wow.
So I played ball. That's what I did. Yeah. So me and my son, we can go throw a football in the yard. We can go play baseball. We can go play basketball. We can do whatever. The girl's like, well, why do you play with him? You love him more. I just don't get it. So I made the mistake of sitting down to play dollhouse with my youngest. She got so mad at me. She was like, Mom, just don't worry about it. I was like, what? She was like, you have to change your voice with the doll. Like, you can't use your I was like, she was angry. She was like, Mom, just.
You don't even know how to play a game, right?
No clue. But have special playtime with your little ones. If they want to build Legos for an hour, oh, fine. If they want to, whatever, give them that space, that time to where brother and sister, no, like, this is not your time. This is it. Like, you get next. Or if you have two, flip it. Like if you play first with this one, play first with the next one. But just make sure they know that they've got that time with you. And you'll be surprised the conversations that come up that you didn't even know they were thinking about. But they're not going to bring it up in front of the other one. You know what I mean? For whatever reason. And so that's like your time to do your therapy. You know what I mean? It's like, well, tell me what's been happening at school. Any kind of drama, especially with girls. Tell me about the drama at school. And they just go. And it's like, you don't realize how much your kids are dealing with at school as young as they are. And the things they're hearing, the things they're seeing. And that's why I want parents to be involved. Because if your kids have questions for you and you don't answer them, I promise you they're finding out the answers from somebody else. Yeah. And it's going to be answers you probably wish you would have answered instead. Yes. And I've
learned that.
It's right. And it's all ages. And that's what's scary. It's getting younger and younger. Yes. Crazier questions. You're just like, why do you even know what this is? Yeah. So it's tough. So when we have 4-year-olds, 5-year-olds come in the office and they're like, oh, well, I saw this. Like, how do you even know what that is? Or how do you know what that looks like? Or how do you know what that smells like? So it's things and you're just like, okay, parents have got to get involved. They've got to have that one-on-one time with their kids. Doesn't matter the age. If you know your older kid likes ball games, take them to a ball game. Like, go for a walk at the park, whatever. And the kids are like, Mom, I don't want to do this. Doesn't matter. You don't have an option. Get in the car. Let's go. Yeah. Like, you've got to take that time out with these kids. And the kids appreciate it too. And so the interactions and your relationships are so much better.
Yeah, you're giving me some stuff to implement with my kids. I like the talk time thing. We do stuff together, but I always do it with both of them. So I got to start splitting it so I can get that one-on-one.
Even if it's like a Dollar Tree visit. It's like, hey, let's go to a Dollar Tree. Like whatever store they like. Kids love to spend money. They don't care. Dollar Tree, they just want to go for them. And so it's like, okay, look, we're going to go spend 30 minutes. We're going to go to the park. We'll get ice cream, whatever. But it's just them, and then it's that importance, that acceptance that I know they value me and I know they love me because X, Y, Z. And all the time, like you said, a lot of it's that quality time. They're listening to me. They're paying attention to me. Families who have multiple siblings, it is harder to do the special one-on-one. But if you can't do it in that same day, designate them a day during the week, and it's just that involvement, has to be there. And if you can't do it, get them involved with youth groups, get them involved with organizations, get them involved with sports, like whatever you have to do, because sometimes I know as a single parent, you can't always be there, but they've got to have that circle or they're going to get lost. somewhere. You know,
That's good stuff. Is there anything else you would like to add before we close the show out tonight?
no, because I could keep talking, so we're good.
I mean, you have
We're
look,
good.
you have came through and blazed it. Your knowledge, your passion, has I mean it's top tier.
Thank you.
I didn't even know what I was gonna get tonight. I mean, I've learned a lot, so you taught me some things, and you're doing a great job. Keep it up. It is like we told the other thing, it is needed.
Yeah, for sure.
If you never hear it, it's appreciated.
Yes.
And I know sometimes as a person that sacrifices and gives and pours, you don't always get the pat on the back,
Right.
like, and it's not that you were doing it for that,
Right.
but you're human. It's always good to be like, man, you know what? I did kill that. You know what I'm saying? Or it's like, man, they did appreciate me. You see a kid come up to you in the store and they give you the biggest hug, and it's like, man, because of you, my life has changed.
Yeah.
Man, it don't get no better than that. So keep it up.
I was walking in Ulta and I hear a kid, Miss V. I'm like, what? So I turn around and this kid's literally running, and he's taller than jumps, and I'm just like, are you kidding me? But of course, you acknowledge that.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, what a bonehead, but you just love them.
Yeah.
But it is like, and they see you anywhere and wherever, and they will get upset if you don't.
Yeah.
Eat,
Yeah. So keep it up. Keep it up. Keep it up. I will refer. We
bring them on.
we've got about 3 or 4 therapists that's been on the show, man. So we got some places we can refer. So what you got, Dwayne? You gonna close out, my guy?
Listen, Miss V, again, we thank you so much for tuning in and being a guest for us tonight. I will say I was sitting there thinking about the entire time of how we have something to reference parents to reference kids to this episode right here. And so and a lot of knowledge in it. And it's amazing because like you said, we had several therapists on here, but like everyone has brought their own
totally different background.
Yes,
Yeah.
all different backgrounds.
But all of y'all had passion and knowledge.
Yes.
What was doing.
Yes.
You
And
can't
you can see it.
do this job if you don't.
Yeah.
And that's
Sweet.
yeah. You just can't.
So, well, that's it then. Well, again, everyone, we appreciate you so much for tuning into this broadcast. Just continue to like, share, and spread the word about what we're doing here at the Elevated Chat Room, because our main mission is to elevate your mind, to elevate your life.